Hi, my name is Aria Gabriela Pinto. I am a recent graduate of Ithaca College. I have a bachelor's degree in both health education and physical education. I was born and raised in Southampton, New York, which is the east end of Long Island, and I went to Southampton School District my whole life. We were all very fortunate to have a physical education program that was very developed for all students in the program. Both of my parents are originally from Brazil, and they moved to the United States in order to provide a better educational opportunity for my brother and I. So both of them are very involved in lifelong physical fitness. Both of them are actually Zumba instructors. So having influences around me, such as my parents, who are very involved in physical activity, encouraged me to become a physical educator. So my teaching philosophy focuses around the idea of inclusion in the classroom. From different experiences that I've heard from fellow colleagues around me, it seems like physical education has a very bad reputation of excluding children in the classroom. For example, if students aren't at a higher skilled level compared to some students that are at a less skilled level, they feel like they are not being represented in the classroom. They can feel like the students who are more high skilled are being favored in the classroom by the teachers or by other peers around them. And then students who are less skilled typically feel like their voices are not being heard, they feel embarrassed in the class, and overall their motivation to participate in physical activity decreases over time. I personally see that to be very unfair, and that is not the type of class environment that I provide for children. In my teaching, I provide a lot of differentiated instruction. So, in my differentiated instruction, I would provide students with different tasks that they can perform throughout the lesson. All the students can still be focusing on the same activity and the same skill set, but the students are working at their own level. Another thing that I could do is I would also provide students with different types of equipment. If students need bigger equipment to focus on their motor skill, I will provide them with bigger equipment. If students feel like they're at a higher skill level and they want to challenge themselves, they can choose smaller equipment. I think with skill level, it is important to teach students that even though they may be at a certain skill level at the time, they can always progress from there, and students should always be allowed to challenge themselves. Students are allowed the opportunity to work within their level, or if they feel like they have mastered that level already, they can then move up. The whole idea is for, again, an inclusive environment to make sure that every student feels that they have the right to participate in the class and they are not being shunned by their peers and they are not being shunned by their teacher. So I think that advocacy is incredibly important for a physical educator to be involved in when it comes to our program. I think that unfortunately a lot of people, both in school districts and in communities, would not necessarily consider physical education an important part of a student's learning. I think that there's a very big stereotype that physical education should be considered a joke because it's all about sports and it's always competitive and not everyone is included. And I think that it's very important to try to break those stereotypes and to show the community that physical education is a serious program. It's a program that all students should be participating in. And I think the first way to advocate for the program is to make sure that the community and the parents and the guardians are all understanding what is happening in the classroom. So one of the first ways that I would help to advocate for our program is by creating and sending out a PE newsletter to the parents and guardians of the students. I really want to make sure that both parents and guardians or other caretakers of the students are very aware of what is happening in the classroom. The PE newsletter would potentially offer information such as the curriculum that we're following, the shape standards that I, myself, and the students are following, as well as the different tasks and activities the students are performing, how we can modify the tasks to fit their needs, as well as how the students are being assessed. I think that parents understanding assessment is very important. I want to make sure that all parents and guardians are aware of how their student is being graded in the class, and I would also offer a place where it would have my contact information. So just in case a parent or guardian is confused or is questioning why a student got this type of grade or why we're following this type of program, that way they can reach out to me and we can have a better communication, a better understanding of what is happening, therefore allowing everyone to be involved in the child's education. So once the newsletter is created, I would then form a small committee with other faculty members, and we would then start working on creating different events where children can bring their parents, their guardians, and invite others in the community to participate in whatever activity they are working on in the class. So, for example, let's say that our unit we were focusing on gymnastics and dance. Potentially, we could start creating a committee, which would then create an event where children can bring their parents and guardians and they could show the different skills they're working on. They could create their own sequences. They could invite their parents and guardians to participate with them, not only as watching, but also making sure that everyone is getting involved. We want to show the community that our program is very serious, that we are not just a type of program that rolls out the ball to children. We want to show that we are teaching them life skills for them to carry throughout the rest of their lives, and that these are not activities that should only be practiced in the school setting. These are activities that students can practice throughout their lifetime, and that's the whole goal of physical education is lifelong physical activity. If students were only participating in activities from pre-K to college years, and then once education time was over and they went to the work field, that things would stop, well, then our program isn't doing the job that it's supposed to do. We want to see children grow up and they play tennis once a week, or they go golfing, or they get with their friends and come up with different activities. So, in regards to my experience of working with children, I've actually been a head camp counselor at the Southampton Camping Club for the past 2 summers. So, the first summer I actually worked with 3-year-olds, and then the second summer I followed that group up to the 4-year-old group. And at this camp, we focus on many different activities such as dance, gymnastics, basketball, tennis, soccer, and swimming lessons. As young as 3 years old, these kids are already starting swimming lessons and learning how to move in the water. And I think the very great experience with this camp is that all of the counselors had the opportunity to see how these children were growing in only this 10-week period. And so a lot of the times we were helping the students with their motor skills, whether it was kicking the ball or jumping or hopping or how to run around in a safe way through general space while making sure that they're safe in their safe space. So even though a majority of the camp time was being provided for students being physically active, at the same time we were making sure that students were being taken care of socially and emotionally. So one of my parts of my teaching philosophy is that a physical educator should not just focus on the cognitive domain and the motor domain. We should also be focusing on the social and affective domain. I have a strong belief that children need consistent feedback in order to progress in whatever they're doing. I think that when students do not receive any type of feedback or do not receive any type of sign that a teacher is paying attention, the student will not feel motivated to participate and will eventually potentially give up on whatever they're working on. I believe that children need consistent encouragement and the feedback is very important for them. So at this camp, a lot of the time, we were always encouraging children to keep doing the best that they could do, to keep moving. If they fell, brush them off, make sure everything was okay, but for them to keep pushing themselves. And I think that is what physical educators should always do. We are always encouraging students to be the best that they can be. We are not setting limits for the child ever, and we are also making sure that children are not comparing themselves to others. We want to make sure that children are focusing on their own skill level. So, for example, at this camp, we would always practice modified tasks. So we would always provide children with different sides of equipment, or we would put them in different groups so that way they had opportunities to work with different children. We always made sure that children were focusing on themselves and not the success of others. And that is the way for children to actually grow and to continue their process instead of comparing themselves to others in their class. I would consider myself a great candidate for this position. I am incredibly passionate and devoted to student learning. I want my students to come into my classroom and feel excited to participate in physical activity. And I want them to leave the classroom feeling like they've been educated and that their learning is only progressing as time goes on. So I personally consider teaching to be an incredible honor and an amazing responsibility to take on. And I hope that I will be considered a great candidate for this position. Thank you so much for your time.